If you're listening and you know it, clap your hands. If you're listening and you know it, clap your hands. If you're listening and you know it, and you really want to show it. If you're listening and you know it, clap your hands. So, today, loves, we are going to be talking about active listening, all right? And the reason why we are going to be talking about active listening is because I don't think people really understand the importance of paying attention, listening with your mouth, right? Zip it, right? So a lot of times when we are listening, we listening to what? We trying to hurry up and speak, or we just like we listening to and we already got something in our mind that we want to say back, right? And we're not even really half the time, we don't even really hear what they say a lot of the times, because guess what? We just want to get what we want to say out. So we are not even listening to what nobody else has to say. So I want to talk about that, because that is something that can be very detrimental to your confidence, right? Think about it. How do you feel when somebody is, like, you can just tell they're not listening to you, right? Like, they're listening to you, but they're not listening to you. Meaning, you're sitting up there and you like, man, girl, let me just tell you, because I just said da-da-da-da-da. And then to you, it looks like they're listening like, like, right? How does that feel? That doesn't feel good to anybody, to me, you, to nobody on earth. So there's not a person on this earth that can say that they going to feel good, right? You might not care. There's people on this earth that's like, girl, I don't care about how people, feel about me or how they look at me or none of that. Let me explain something to you. That might be true. You might not really care, but guess what? We all feel a certain way when people do us a certain way. No matter who you are human. You are not immune from a feeling, right? We have some people out here that are, you have those that act like they have no feelings, right? But in reality, everybody have feelings. Feelings drive you to do whatever it is you're doing. Whether you're doing something positive or you're doing something negative, trust me, the feeling behind is always a feeling behind the drive of why you're doing what you're doing, rather, okay? All right, I got tricked up, right? Y'all, don't be telling nobody I got tricked up. I know y'all be trying to tell people on me. It's like, nah. All right, so, and I just want to tell y'all something, right? A lot of us don't listen. And if you don't know, like I said, I was raised by my dad, right? And I can always remember, like, think about it. I'm my dad's, like, he has 2 girls, but, like, I'm the only girl he raised, right? So I remember my dad always telling me about gas, like, keep your legs closed and do this and, and I always, he's like, you know what, when you and the man, you got to get somebody, pay attention to them, y'all got to learn how to communicate, just certain things, but I really never really listened and had active listening. I always listened with my ears shut, right? Meaning, the more my dad told me, I was one of them females, like, the more my dad said don't date, the more I dated. The more he didn't like a guy, the more I dated the guy. Like, I was just, because I know, right? Like, I was just one of them. I don't know if you was one of them, but Queen A was one of them, okay? I was just one of them that, the more my dad said don't do it, the more I did it. I don't know why. Well, yes, I do. I'll tell y'all why. Because I always felt like he was nagging, right? I was like, oh, he just want to say something because I'm his baby girl and he's dad and he's going to say something anyway, right? So, I didn't really have, now don't get me wrong, my mom was around, but I didn't really have her in my ear nagging me really too much about boys, if that makes sense, right? So, because she was around, but like I was raised by my dad, so I spent 90% of my time with my dad. And so it's like, the times I did spend with my mom, she wasn't in my ear like that about boys, So she may have said a little bit, but not how I felt like I should have been, talked to about young guys and grilled about them and, taught about them and just certain things about, how to be a young lady, So I had to learn that as I went along. So, but by me not doing what my father told me to do, guess what happened? I got pregnant at an early age, right? I got pregnant at 14. That's young, right? That is very young. And I had my son at 15, right? I had my oldest son at 15 who passed away the day before my birthday, December 20th, right? Right before I turned 16. So it's like I don't really it's hard around my birthdays around this time of year, right? So I just say that to say that I end up getting pregnant. Now, had I listened, like had active listening, right? Like meaning had I really turned off everything and just paid attention, like really looked my dad in the eyes and really just paid attention to what he said and thought about what he said and analyzed what he said, right? And had I had somebody in my ear telling me about analyzing that, because I never really analyzed what my father said. I never really thought about what he said. I never really even gave it a second thought when my dad said something about something like that. I just always thought he was nagging. And I got pregnant early and I lost my son early. So, and what that did was that caused me to start having attitudes, start, losing my confidence, start losing self-control, I felt a lot of fear, right? Meaning that I was afraid to even become a mom again, as time went on, right? Even when I became grown, like when I had my next child, like when I found out I was pregnant with my son, I was so nervous and terrified because I had lost a child. So I was scared to go through the trauma. And I don't know if it's any mothers out there, any fathers out there, because it's not just mothers that lose babies either. It's fathers that's out here losing children as well. So if you're a mother and a father, when you lose that first child, especially if you lose that first child at a young age, when you have that next child, you are a little nervous. You go about things more cautious because you kind of like cherishing this baby because you just praying and hoping that everything goes right. So you try to do everything in your power to hope, to make everything go right and go correct, right? But let's go back to active listening, guys. Like I said, had I listened to my father when he told me, hey, keep your legs closed. Had I really sat there and thought about it and analyzed it. Because back in my time, that we had sex education. So we was getting shown pictures of things of, what the vagina looked like when it's infected and what the penis looked like when it's infected. And, we got shown all of that. Had I sat and thought about sex education, guess what? I would have probably put a pause on it right then. But like I said, I put a block right there when my dad would start talking. When my father would start talking, I would always put a block up. Like, I don't want to hear that. He just about to start talking about nothing. He ain't got nothing to say. What do you want to talk about? He don't want to talk about nothing. But had I really stopped and listened, guess what? I wouldn't have got pregnant at 14. I would have waited. But because the fact I did not, guess what happened? I got pregnant at 14, had my first child at 15. Then not only that, my first child turned around and passed away before I even turned 16. Matter of fact, the day before my 16th birthday. So December 20th is the day my son passed away. My birthday is December the 21st, right? So I always wonder why I never really paid attention around this time of year, right? I never really, this time of year for me around my birthday, people like, oh, you never really want to do nothing. You always just in the house and, do something. And I never really understood why until I started thinking the other day, this is why I don't really do nothing around my birthday. My oldest son passed away the day before my birthday. But so it's to me, my Earth Day is like a bittersweet moment. I'm grateful to have overcame the challenges in that age and turned the next age, but I'm also have a lot of trauma that I deal with every day behind my son passing away the day before my Earth Day. I deal with that a lot, but throughout that, things that help me is, guess what I do? I have to get up, I have to read, listen, watch, talk to, right? or speak to something. I have to do something positive in the morning. I have to meditate, do yoga, right? I have to learn what respect is. I have to overcome fear. I have to overcome failures, right? I have to understand that in order for me to grow, I have to be comfortable with failing. Because if I'm not comfortable with failing, guess what's going to happen? I'm never going to grow. And this is for you out there. If you're not comfortable with failing, you're never going to grow. So I take it back to active listening. A lot of us are where we are because guess what? We're hard-headed. Knock, knock. Knock on your own forehead, right? They just told me my forehead was big the other day. So don't be telling nobody that, right? And forget y'all. But knock, knock. Right? I want y'all to take a look at yourself. Is it something, somebody, or anything that you haven't been listening to? Right? Because your environment could be trying to tell you something. The people around you could be trying to tell you something, right? The things you keep encountering could be trying to tell you something. Is there things happening around you and to you that you're not understanding? Because guess what? I can guarantee you that there is. And if there is, you need to figure out why that's happening. Take the time to engage in active listening. When you engage in your active listening, guess what? It puts you in a frame of mind. It forces you to think. You don't have a choice but to think. That's the mode you want to be in. Right? So that is why I tell y'all active listening is so different. It's the difference between listening. Y'all know how y'all say it's called selective hearing, right? How many of parents out there? And I'm not talking about mothers, I'm talking about fathers too. Fathers got selective hearing too, right? If you're a father of your child, you got selective hearing too. How many parents out there, kids can say mama or daddy, right? And you playing the game or you watching TV or whatever it is you may be doing, right? And they like, mama, daddy, and you just you ain't heard nothing they saying because guess what you're doing? You're watching TV. So while you're watching TV, then all of a sudden, they come in there and they like, mom. And you like, huh? Or daddy, huh? And they like, I was calling you, and then you like, oh, my bad, I didn't hear you. Well, really, you heard them, but you had that selective hearing where you had blocked them out because guess what? You want to pay attention to whatever it is you was paying attention to, whether it be the TV, whether it be your phone, right? Whether it be the telephone, right? You're like, meaning you're actually speaking on the phone or on the internet or playing a game, whatever the case may be. That at the moment was what you felt, what you chose to pay attention to, right? Because we talk about choices too, right? So that's what you chose to pay attention to. And that is why you didn't hear them. You didn't hear them. They was over there like, mama, daddy, daddy. They was knocking on the doors, right? And you still over there asleep, lost. And they like, mama, I'm sorry, y'all, my earrings do that, drive me crazy. But they like, mama, daddy, right? And you just sitting over there, you like, and you all into the TV. And then they bust in, or whatever. They're like, oh, mom, you ain't hear me, I thought. And you like, oh, my bad. How many times did that happen? Raise your hand if that happened. Right? How many times have you been calling somebody? Over and over and over again, your kids, for example, right? Anybody you've been calling them and you like, oh my gosh, you go in there, you like, you ain't hear me calling you? They could be right in the next room. You ain't hear me calling you? And they like, no, ma'am. Girl. Or, baby, I ain't hear you calling me. And you wondering, and you sitting up there, you in your head, you like, oh my gosh, I know they heard me calling. But really, yes, they did, but yes and no. It's like they heard you, but a part of their brain had channeled you to a different area and put forth the area that was most important. That is how the brain works. That is how humans work. We pay attention to what we feel is most important. That's why I say everybody have feelings. So even people who say, oh, I don't feel nothing, I don't care about nothing, think about and pay attention to the stuff they do every day, all day on the basis. That is the stuff that they feel and care about. All right? It's something that they're doing. It's a feeling that makes them do what they're doing. Right? They get a feeling from that, whether they are consciously aware of it or not. Okay? So this is why we have to be aware of active listening, because a lot of times we are thinking we're listening just because we're sitting there and we're looking at a person and we're facing them, right? But in reality, we might be looking at them, even sitting down with our legs crossed and all that Gucci stuff, right? And facing them, but then guess what? We don't hear them. How many times have you been, think about it, just you alone, how many times have you ever been facing somebody, like literally right there facing them, and they just said, they done been talking for a while, or ever been on the phone with somebody and they've been talking for a long time and you didn't channel them out, not even knowing that you didn't channel them out. Then when they say something, they like, you ain't hear me, like, huh, or girl, or you try to play it off like, right, I know that's right, right, or right, you try to play it off. Think about it. Everybody done it. We're only human. It's called non-active listening when that's happening. But when we're tuned in and when we're actively listening, guess what? We hear every word you're saying. We can break it down when you say, you might stop and say, what I said. We're going to break it down word for word, what you said, how you said it, the tone you used, the little face you might have made. All that if we're actively listening and paying attention to what you're saying. Because when you're actively listening, guess what? You already, like when somebody asks you what they're saying, you already like talking and processing it in your head. So it's like you just spitting it out because it's already up there. That's the only thing you have in your head. You don't have all that other stuff that you have in your head when you're a non-active listener. Right? When you're a non-active listener, somebody's talking to you today about business and you thinking about the barbecue coming up next week. Right? You're like, oh my gosh, the barbecue coming up this week. I wonder what we're going to do or what I'm going to bring to the barbecue if they need me to bring. This is what you're thinking in your head. Meanwhile, your business partner or meanwhile, whoever is talking to your mom, dad, your child is speaking to you. Your mind is thinking about the barbecue. Okay? So that is the difference between non-active listening and active listening. Like I said, when you're actively listening, somebody can stop and ask you what's going on. You're going to break it down to them. But when somebody's non-active listening, you going to stop. Somebody's going to stop and ask you, what did I say? Girl, what I say? You're going to be like, huh? And you're going to bust out laughing. Y'all both going to bust out laughing because guess what? You wasn't paying no attention. Baby, you wasn't paying no attention. And it wasn't that you was purposely not paying attention. Guess what? Your mind didn't process that as being the most important thing at that moment. Why? Because you didn't feel that it was the most important thing in that moment. So your body processed that to a different channel, right? Put that on pause while it focused on stuff that it felt was important, which is that barbecue, right? So we got to understand how to engage in active listening so we can put up that non-active listening, right? It's a time and a place for non-active and it's a time and a place for active, right? Because a lot of times I give you perfect examples when it's a time for non-active listening, right? When you're at work, right? You're like Queen A works in a warehouse, right? And there's all this manufacturing stuff going on, all this little these machines going off, right? I don't need to listen to all that. I don't need to hear what's all going on, right? Unless it's an emergency. And if it's an emergency, it's going to be loud enough for me to hear it. I ain't going to have to worry about it, right? It's going to be alarms going off, I'm going to smell something. It's going to be a warning or something, right? So that is when I'm at work, like boom, right? But it's also a time to be active in that scenario too. Let's say the alarms go off, right? And I start smelling something, or I start seeing smoke, right? Or it start looking funny, right? All the lights shut off. Now it's time to be an active listener. It's time for me to pay attention to what's going on around me, right? And see if I need to flee, right? So, it's a time and a place to be active and non-active. Another example of being a non-active listener, right? Let's say You're going about your day. You're walking up down the street, right? You're like, you know what? I got to get down here, downtown. I got to go to court, or I got to go downtown because I got to go handle some business, whatever your case may be, right? And it's all these people down there talking, right? That is when you can turn on your non-active. You don't need to hear every conversation that's going on around you. You only need to pay attention to what's important to you and what's an emergency situation that may be come an emergency, right? Right? And also in that scenario, when you need to become active is when you start seeing things that's going wrong. You maybe somebody screaming help, or you start seeing fire things now. You hear gunshots, or whatever that case may be. That's when it's time to become an active listener and know if you need to flee, right? Get down, stop, drop, roll, whatever case may be, all right? But that is when you need to understand and learn the difference, right? So that is why we talk about and teach you the difference between that, because a lot of people don't understand what active listening is, and what they don't even understand that there is such things as active listening. They're like, what? They're active listening? You mean to tell me if I'm looking at you and I'm sitting and facing you, that don't mean that I'm listening to you? Like, I'm just saying, y'all had to do it like that. Yes, that's true. Yes, that does not mean that you're listening just because you're looking and you're facing somebody. All right, so I hope y'all got something from this and understand that the reason that there's a difference between active listening and non-active listening, right? And understand the reason why it's so important to be an active listener. The reason why it's so important to be an active listener, because if you're not an active listener, you're going to miss all the important things that can happen in your life. All the important things. You're going to miss emergencies. You're going to miss anything that's important, right? And that needs your attention, right? Anything that warrants your attention and anything that you need to focus on, you're going to miss it if you don't have active listening. All right, so I hope y'all got something from this video. Go ahead and make sure that y'all like and y'all share this video with y'all friends. If y'all want to join my Each One Motivate One community, it's a free community on Facebook. Simply comment join in the comment section, and I'll go ahead and I'll send you email. Comment join, and I'll go ahead and I'll send you the link to that group. And what we do in that group, guys, we are going to go live. It's going to be awesome. It's a brand new group that I'm starting, free community. Also, we will be doing webinars every Wednesday, 7 p.m. We'll be doing webinars. I'll be going live in the webinars. In the webinars, I'll be giving y'all some gems, some golden diamonds, some nuggets, some crowns about how to become a better individual, right? Especially when it comes to this aspect. You'll get so many gems on active listening. What? You can't help but to learn. You'll know without a shadow of a doubt when to become an active listener and when it's like, oh, I don't have to pay attention to this, right? All right. So I hope y'all got something from this. Remember to share this video out. Share this video out with anybody that you may feel may be in need of this video. If it helped you, it can help somebody else. Make sure y'all share it out. And don't forget, y'all, if don't nobody else love y'all, y'all already know Queen A does. I'll be dropping part 2 of this video, so make sure y'all check that out. I'll be dropping part 2, which part 2 will be breaking down exactly how do you become an active listener. What steps does it take to become an active listener? Queen A gonna give you the top 5 steps to help you become an active listener. So make sure you pay attention to that next video that's going to be dropping, all right? So, y'all already know. Don't nobody else love y'all. Queen A does. Later. Mwah. This message is brought to you by